Okay,
Yeah.
Amy, I think the recording has started.
Okay. Welcome to the Volunteer Tennessee Executive Committee meeting. Today, we will be reviewing and voting on executive committee minutes and an ad hoc committee to review and recommend revisions to the Volunteer Tennessee Executive Order. And we'll have time for public comment at the end. First, we're going to do a quorum check. First order of business. There are currently 6 voting members of the executive committee, so we will need 4 voting members for a quorum. Amy Gilliland, can you do a roll call, please?
Sure. Sorry, I'm used to having multiple screens too. This is not going to be in any particular order, and please help me if I miss anybody because I don't have a fancy little chart. Amy Walter.
Present.
Terry Silver.
Present.
Jason Scott.
Here.
Amy Gilliland, here. Nancy Shalene.
Here.
Andrea Hill. Michael Hogan. And Betty White. I believe that's everybody. The question that I would have is Nancy a voting member?
Oh, well, yeah. So Nancy's ex officio, but
Okay,
even
but we still have 4.
you still have 4 voting. So that
Okay.
still constitutes a quorum of the executive committee. So I believe you have a quorum.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to need to read a statement of necessity since we are not all in person. We need to approve the statement of necessity. Due to scheduling conflicts, less than a quorum of Volunteer Tennessee Executive Committee members is present in person for the meeting today. So under Tennessee Code annotated section 8-44-108, the Volunteer Tennessee Commission is allowed to rely on participation of members by electronic or other means to constitute a quorum, only upon determination by the Commission that a necessity exists. The Executive Committee is scheduled to consider the time-sensitive ad hoc Executive Order Committee. Do I hear a motion to approve the determination of necessity to proceed with a meeting with a quorum to include electronic and phone participants based on the time sensitivity of the matter on today's agenda?
I make a motion. This is Terry.
I second Amy. And then Amy Gilliland, can you make a roll call vote?
Yep, just 1 second. All right. Amy Walter.
Aye.
Terry Silver.
Aye.
Jason Scott.
Aye.
Amy Gilliland. Aye. Nancy Shalene.
Can I say aye, or am I not supposed to be voting?
You can say aye. So ex officio member votes are advisory, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, here's
And I know-
Michael.
Yeah, Michael joined us, and someone else just which might be Betty.
Andrea just joined.
Oh,
Sorry,
Andrea.
guys.
Okay, great.
Andrea, okay.
Andrea.
So I don't know, Amy Walter, if you want to include Andrea for the purposes of the vote. I mean, you've already done the statement of necessity, and you have enough folks who've voted for it already. But if you want to include the votes of Andrea and Michael, you could, I guess you could probably do that since they joined before the vote concluded.
Andrea and Michael, we are voting on the statement of necessity. We are not all, we don't have quorum in person.
Okay.
So Amy is taking a roll call vote.
Okay, and notes. So hang on 1 second. During the call, Andrea and joined and we're updated. Roll call continued. Okay, so Terry made the motion, Amy seconded it about us meeting, not being able in person, but the necessity to proceed in this way. And so Andrea, will you vote for us, please?
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, Michael?
Yes.
All right, thank you. It passes unanimously.
Okay, so our next order of business is to review and approve minutes of the executive committee meeting on September 26, 2023. You should all have received these minutes last week. Let's take a minute to review. Does anyone have corrections or additions?
If I may, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
I second.
Second.
All right. Would you like me to do a roll call, Amy?
Yes, Amy, if you would do a
What?
roll call vote.
I'm sorry, Amy,
Yeah.
Amy Gilliland, who do you have as, Michael and Andrea, I think, spoke almost at the same time.
Yeah.
So I don't
Oh,
know who.
I heard Michael first, so I
Okay,
have Terry
okay.
presented and Michael seconded.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Okay.
All right. And again, for those who just joined us, I apologize. I am on vacation and doing this remotely. And so the roll call is in order of attendance, not necessarily in alphabetical order or anything fancy. So for the minutes, Amy Walter,
Aye.
Terry Silver, hang on.
Yeah,
Terry-
Terry, you're muted. If you're voting, we can't hear you.
Yes, you made us a motion, but now we're voting to approve the minutes as presented. All right, I'll roll back around to Terry. Jason?
Aye.
Amy Gilliland? Aye. Nancy Shalene?
Aye.
Andrea Hill?
Aye.
Michael Hogan?
Aye.
Betty White? And Terry Silver. All right, it still passes with the quorum count.
Thank you, Amy. Now we need to review and approve minutes from the last executive committee meeting on November 20th, 2023. You should also have received these minutes last week, and let's take a minute to review this. Does anyone have any corrections or additions? It looks like Terry tried to call me. Oh, she's on hold now. See if I can get Terry.
Hey, Amy,
Yeah, Terry,
I got kicked out.
well, just try to rejoin.
I can't. I don't have any link or anything. That's what I tried to do. That's why I'm calling you.
Okay, Terry, we just were voting on the minutes. Okay, so we're on to the next minutes.
I got you. I did want to vote yes for the first one, but I got kicked out somehow. But anyway.
You guys hear that?
Yes.
Okay. I got you, Terry. You're on my phone.
Oh, thank you for having my back.
Okay, so any comments or additions, questions on the 11:20 minutes? Do I have a motion to approve?
This is
Motion
Terry.
to approve.
Pardon?
This is Terry. Motion to approve.
Terry, motion to approve, and then
Second.
Jason second. You got to be quick, Andrea.
I know.
All right. Amy Walter,
Aye.
Terry Silver.
Aye. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, thanks. Jason Scott,
Aye.
Amy Gilliland. Aye. Nancy Shalene,
Aye.
Andrea Hill,
Aye.
Michael Hogan,
Aye.
Betty White. All right, it passes.
Thank you, Amy. Our next order of business is to discuss and approve the creation of an ad hoc committee to review and recommend revisions to the Volunteer Tennessee Executive Order. We are looking for someone who could chair this committee. We're looking at doing this kind of in tandem to the bylaws because there needed to be some cleanup on it anyway, but we still have a few things we'd like to hammer out with this. First of all, we're going to vote on whether we decide to have an ad hoc committee. Oops, I lost Terry. Do I have a motion to create an ad hoc committee?
I'll make a motion to have the ad hoc committee. I'm sorry, I need to finish that.
Thank you, Michael.
Is it my turn for the second?
You got
It's
it,
your
girl.
turn, Andrea. Yeah, you got the second motion. You got there.
All right, so we're going to take a vote on forming a ad hoc committee to review and make suggested revisions to the executive order. Amy Walter,
Aye.
Terry Silver,
Aye.
Jason Scott,
Aye.
Amy Gilliland, aye. Nancy Shalene,
Aye.
Andrea Hill,
Aye.
Michael Hogan,
Aye.
Betty White. All right, it passes.
Any member of the public wishing to address the executive committee during the public comment period must make a request in writing to Jim Snell at jim.snell@tn.gov or 615-253-1426 no later than 1 business day in advance of the meeting date. Comments must be relevant to the published agenda items. Jim, did we receive any requests from public comment?
No. And as far as I can tell, nobody other than the executive committee members have joined. And the meeting room I reserved has a bunch of construction equipment in it that I didn't realize until I got here. So I'm just going to wheel my chair back to make sure that nobody's standing out in the hall trying to join the meeting. Okay, so yeah, there's nobody here to join the meeting.
So do we want to have a short discussion on, is anyone on who might lead this? Jason, you've got your hands full with the bylaws, but does anybody wish to chair this ad hoc committee where we had some names involved, or Jim, is this the forum for this?
Yeah, I mean, so the certainly I think it's within the realm of responsibility for the executive committee to decide who it would like to ask to be on the committee. Now, I don't think you can force anybody to be on it, but you can certainly talk about who you'd like to ask. And then also, it is the chair's responsibility to appoint committee chairs. But Amy and I talked about this earlier, and she would very much like the input from the executive committee on who they think should chair the committee. So I think both of those would be good discussions to have right now, because one for sure, we need to know who is going to be asked to be on the committee for sure, and then certainly who would then be asked to chair the committee.
Amy, can you give us some clarity on what the responsibility will be for the chair of this committee, and also the role of this committee? I know we got it written down, but just in your own words.
So in my own words, it is, we're calling this ad hoc committee because part of the executive order was not revised. The last version we had is from 2019, and there are some additional questionable or unclear language in it that we need to get shored up, because it's in conflict with the bylaws. We're working on the bylaws, but there's some verbiage in there that is unclear and needs to be changed. And it's not anywhere near as involved as the bylaws, but it does impact Volunteer Tennessee and the commission. And so it's not a lengthy document. It's just working on, and Jim, you might have an idea about what, if you want to share what went into the latest revision and share a little bit about what this committee, what resources they might have to be able to work on this.
Yeah, sure. So as Amy mentioned, the commission last looked at potentially revising the executive order in 2019, and the board development committee at that time went through the executive order line by line and made suggested edits. And that version was approved by the commission at the very end of the year of 2019. And then you all might remember that in early 2020, we hit COVID and everything went haywire. And so the chair at the time, who probably some of you remember, Tina Hodges, we talked about it, and we just didn't think there was any way the governor's office would consider the executive order at that time, because they were dealing with so much related to COVID. So we just sat on it, and at the time, I think we thought that maybe COVID would last a couple months, and then we could come back and submit the executive order to the governor's office for consideration. And then we were 2 years later and still just coming out of COVID. So anyway, that version never got submitted to the governor's office for consideration, but all of that work has already been done. Now, I think kind of specifically to Terry's question, what this committee would need to do is go back and look at those edits and make sure, one, that those edits are still appropriate, and then two, look at including any additional edits based on the input that we've recently received from the Finance Administration Office of Legal Counsel, or Office of General Counsel. And so that's going to be potentially a few additional edits that need to be made. But the groundwork has already, for the most part, been done in 2019 by the Board Development Committee.
So
Thank
just
you.
picking up where they left off and revising a few things that, because part of the way it's worded contributed to all the confusion last year with what happened with Jim. And we're trying to make sure that there are some maybe roadblocks to that ever happening like that again. Right, Jim? And so a couple of some of the text is still a little vague, and we want to close that door if we can. And that was part of the confusion and issue with what we've been dealing with the last few months. And there seems to be with the commission all the way up, the commissioners, a desire to have this revised as well. We're not meeting resistance there. There may be a little back and forth on interpretation again, but we are kind of honed in on what the issues are, and they're open to us working on this. So
Yeah, and I to go back and revise what I said a little bit earlier. So the commission did look at the bylaw, their executive order in 2019, and I thought that they had approved it at their retreat in 2019. But now that I go back and look at my records, the commission actually voted on and approved the edits that were proposed by the Board Development Committee at its May meeting of 2020. So that's the version that we have that was approved by the commission in 2020 for submission to the governor's office. And again, we never actually submitted it because we were still at the very beginning of COVID, and we just kind of sat on it.
So, so Terry, it would kind of pick up where we left off. Certainly Jason's a resource, and other members of the Board Development Committee, if there was, I don't know, Jim, it might help to have a joint meeting so everybody knows where everybody was coming from with the comments, and then what the challenges are a little bit in terms of aligning things and how we need to look at that. There's a lot of work that's been done by the Board Development Committee. And the bylaws have been a big animal to take on, but we're getting there with that. And probably a big sticking point with that is we still have to resolve. And so it's just, there are resources available for whoever chairs this, and we'd love to have a committee of folks who could maybe think of, we can, I don't know, Jim, did they seem open to us reaching out to other service commissions and seeing, if there's any other strategies of working with this, or tell us, because I would like to know too, what would be next steps for this committee, this ad hoc committee? Would they meet with legal? Would they, what kind of board development?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think what would probably need to happen is that the committee, this ad hoc committee, would go back and look at the revisions that were approved in May of 2020, compare to the comments that we've received from the Office of General Counsel, make any additional edits, and then all of that would then need to go to the Office of General Counsel for them to take a look at for the executive order, just to make sure that we haven't overlooked any potential conflicts with state law or federal statute. And then whatever comes back from them would then need to be considered by that ad hoc committee. And then the ad hoc committee would present the final version to the commission for approval. And now the commission's approval doesn't mean that the executive order gets done. It just means that the commission is okay with that version getting submitted to the governor's office. And then once the full commission approves it, then I think we would need to work with the Department of Finance and Administration and the governor's office to make sure that it gets actually submitted to the governor's office for submission and consideration. And Amy, I see there's several hands up. I don't know if you can see that, but Michael had his hand up and then Amy had her hand up.
Yeah, Michael, could go ahead first, if you would.
Yeah, so if I understand, is the chairman to be selected from the executive committee, or we have a list of potential individuals from the board? That's the first question.
Well, we're reaching out to y'all to see if one of y'all would like to chair it or be on it.
Okay. And then my second, I guess it was going to be more of a statement, is that so that this committee should be made up of at least each member from the various committees we have on the board, to give you your 3 or 4, with maybe 1 or 2 coming from the development committee who were present when we drafted these recommendations for the executive order. And I'll say that because that gives a little bit more meat to it, so we wouldn't be starting from scratch, whomever heads that committee up. And we will have some history as to why these decisions were made or recommendations were being made.
Mhm.
So there's suggestions for consideration. Is this going to be a standing committee, or is this a temporary?
It's a temporary committee that's going to just deal with the executive order and getting it tidied up and ready for presentation. Because in my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only standing committees are those that are named in the bylaws. So any ad hoc committee would just be a temporary committee to do whatever business the executive committee charges them to do.
Amy, so you had mentioned that the board development committee had worked on this, which we did. We've also worked on the bylaws. It looks like we need to revise this again. I know that because we've been working on the bylaws and been talking to legal. Would it make sense just to kick it back to the board development committee and do it?
Jim, that could be okay.
Yeah, I think it would be okay. Although I do think Michael's suggestion was really good, that there be representation from at least one person from each committee.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a solid recommendation. So I would say that if the board development committee wants to take the lead on it, I would recommend that at least one person from the other 4 committees also be included in that. So I think it would still be an ad hoc committee that is maybe kind of being led by the board development committee. But then also the question comes back is, you know, who chairs that ad hoc committee? Is it Jason or is it someone else? And I'm not putting pressure on you, Jason, to do it. That's just a question that would need to be answered.
I mean, I think Michael made a point about, you know, just having familiarity with the process since I've been involved with the whole thing. I mean, I think it kind of makes sense. If it's like a different committee, or whether it's just people are invited to be included in the meetings, I mean, it can go however, but you know, because this originated in board development, I'm happy to, you know, support it or maintain it or be the chair on another subcommittee to help people understand why we're doing it and help contribute context to like why certain decisions were made.
And I've shared the committee list, at least all that I can fit on the screen. Just so everybody has an idea of who's on the board development committee right now, and then the members of the other committees. And since we have everybody except for Betty, one possible way to look at it would be to have the committee chairs that are on right now, except for Jason, because it sounds like the entire board development committee is maybe going to participate, that the other committee chairs maybe recommend someone from their committee to participate.
Well, Amy still has her hand up. Let's get.
Oh, yes. Yeah, sorry.
So one quick question. This is going back, sorry, but it's for clarification. When you talked about having a joint meeting, Amy, this is going back, but you meant the ad hoc and board development committee or the executive committee and the board development committee?
The ad hoc and board
Okay.
development committee. Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
but it
just,
looks like we
just
might
wanted,
create an ad hoc committee that includes board development and a member of each of the other committees.
okay. And then, so I just want to make sure I have that right in the notes. The other comment I would make real quickly is, I don't want to speak for Betty, but I would like to add, even if it is, if Betty has somebody else in mind, I think that it might be worth us considering asking Jessica Youngbloom. She serves
She's-
on another, yeah, she serves on, like, she does this kind of commission work with and liaison with another department. And so I think she might have some wisdom that she might be able to offer.
She actually at the conference expressed an interest in participating in this.
Oh, great.
I have one more question. What is
Okay.
the time frame on this temporary committee? We're talking months, 2 or 3 months, or? So I think it'll be good to go ahead and establish that so that when we speak to those who are serving, to know, the duration, since it's temporary.
Yeah, well, the executive committee can set out a timeline if you'd like to set out a hard timeline, like with specific dates, or you could set out a more general timeline. I mean, that's totally up to you all to make that determination. So just in terms of the meetings that are coming up, the May meeting is coming up. That's probably too quick to have anything done.
Right.
And then the meeting after that, and these are regular meetings. I mean, so the commission could also call a special called meeting to consider the bylaws revisions and revisions to the executive order. But in terms of the meetings that are already on the calendar, the May meeting and then the July meeting, July 19th, and then the final regularly scheduled meeting is the retreat and then business meeting on the 11th of October. So if you wanted to set timeframes based on the regular scheduled meetings, it would probably need to be around either the July meeting or the October meeting. If you wanted to consider the potential of a special called meeting, again, to potentially for the commission to approve both the bylaws revisions and proposed revisions to the executive order, that's also an option. That probably, if you wanted to do a special called meeting, that would need to happen probably either in June. We've got the meeting in July already, so August would be, June and August would be the two, I think, most likely months for a special called meeting.
So here's something for thought. Obviously, like you said, May is out. And we want an opportunity not only to review what's being proposed, but also to go out and do some legwork, excuse me, some groundwork on what other commissions have. So it's our piece. And then, of course, we're going to do our homework and see what other commissions have in place. So you made a recommendation, maybe August having a special meeting, or do we take this back to our retreat? So we can present to the entire board, and that gives us about 4 months so we can do some due diligence as far as research. Yeah, as opposed to, I'm trying to just think about what's coming up here in the future for everyone. June and July might be a difficult time for people to meet. August may be a little bit more realistic, but if we don't think that'll work, then we'll go to October.
Well, I know that I will say this, we're pretty close, hopefully, and Jason, you can jump in, with the bylaws, adjusting them to what everybody understands where they should go. And we've had 2 meetings with general counsel on those. And we've got one final big thing to deal with. And that's also where the executive order, it's connected to what's in the executive order. I think there is some level of urgency from the state to get this resolved. I don't I think the bylaws is more of a detailed and lengthy document. I want to give everybody the time they need to make sure this is, when we propose something, it's what we all believe we should go forward with. With the leaving time for OGC to come back to us, you know, with additional comments or suggestions. So I hate to just put a deadline on it, but obviously we're going to go as, you know, we're going to start with a few months, and we can't make May. And then if we need extended time because we need to get it right, we're just going to do it, you know, depending on everybody's progress. And that's what we've indicated to the state of folks with the bylaws. It's going to take what it's going to take to get it right, you know. I mean, but this is, we're not looking at, you know, a year-long project. I mean, we're hoping we can resolve things in, you know, I would say 3 to 5 months to be safe. Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So do you want to be on this committee?
Yeah, I will be a representative. Chairing it may be a little more difficult for me.
So
but I will,
was that, you cut out there, was
I'm
that
sorry.
a,
Yes, you can put me on the committee. Yes.
awesome, awesome, thank you. Michael, we'll reach out to Jessica because she did indicate an interest.
And you can put my name on the committee.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah.
There's no limit to the number of people on here. Feel free, everybody.
So
We've got some good people
Hey.
here, and then with Jason's team. Anybody else?
And I did have a question before. So with the bylaws, hopefully getting done in the next couple of months, maybe, or weeks, maybe, do we need that prior to the to talking about the executive order?
I mean, on my end, I know that the bylaws, some of the updates are limited by what's in the executive order. So I mean, it might make sense to parallel those.
Gotcha.
Because because there's some stuff in there that we would change, but as the executive order currently stands, we couldn't change it. But if we're doing those together, then it would be good for those to just to move together.
Awesome. No, that makes sense. That I just wanted to know kind of like the frequency of what we would do. If we did it in tandem, I think that would make sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Oh, well, I was just going to say that the bylaws are restricted by the executive order, not the other way around.
Right.
So you have to have stuff in the executive order to be able to authorize some of the stuff that's in the bylaws. And also, just as a little historical context, back in 2019, when the Board Development Committee was looking at revising the bylaw or the executive order, they also at the time did the revision of the bylaws that we picked up last year. And so that version that the commission looked at last year had already been started in 2019 because the Board Development Committee was looking at both at the same time, kind of like what's being proposed right now, to do them in parallel because they're really closely tied to each other.
Now, Jim, one question is that like the bylaws, we can vote on that once it's voted, it's good. But the executive order, that still has to be approved. So like if we approve the bylaws and it mentions something in the proposed executive, like update to the executive order, is that problematic?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it depends on what it is, but yes, potentially.
But I mean, we may have to further revise the bylaws. I mean, it's.
Yeah. So maybe, I mean, I also know that FNA is really interested in reconciling some of the bylaw issues sooner than later. So, I mean, because of that, even though it seems intuitive that the two would kind of go together, it might be worth moving the bylaws forward and then going back and doing like a small tweak to them once the executive order is updated, just so that, demonstrating good faith to FNA that, here's the bylaws, what we have control over, we've done, we're working on the executive order. it might take a little bit longer to get that, and then just go back and do like a small revision to the bylaws after. Maybe something like that.
Mhm. Mhm. So,
And Amy, I think it sounded like a little while ago Terry was going to say something.
Yes, I'm going to take a step of faith here. I'm going to volunteer to chair this committee. If Jason, if he's comfortable with that, Jason, I know you've got a lot on your plate, and I don't want to take away this if you feel like you can do this in the bylaws, but I will volunteer because Mike's going to be on the team, and so is Andrea and Jessica. And I'd like to also recommend Nate. He's really good with particulars and specifics, and I think he'd be an asset to this team. I will only volunteer my services as chair to help, get this going and keep it moving and communicate well with everyone if I can help in that way.
thank you, Terry. That's awesome. All right, so we've got a good team here. Any other comments? I like this. It really does. You all have expertise and a perspective that'll be meaningful on this, and resources and ideas, and that's what we need. It's just clarifying things so we can move forward, and we want to give everybody the time they need, understanding that, we want it to be right, and we want to take all the stress away, and our next meeting will be like in the Caribbean, So Jim, you work on that. Michael, find some grant money.
Let's just join Amy wherever she is.
Right.
Come to Chico.
That's right. Or this Amy's in Hilton Head if y'all want to come there.
Oh, that
Nice.
Amy. Yeah, we're coming there.
I'm jealous.
I don't know if we can use our grant funds for outside of Tennessee, but
Fair, it's fair. Amy, do we need to vote then on forming this committee? And before I'm not trying to wrap us up. I'm just trying to pay attention to the clock too.
Well, we did vote to create this committee.
Yes.
We identified members, and then we just have to check in with the ones that aren't here, Nate and Jessica, to make sure.
Okay.
And I don't know if that calls for another official anything. It seems like we have approved the committee, but does anybody else have questions or comments? And then Jim and I will reach out to Nate and Jessica, and then connect y'all up with Jason initially so that they know the work that's being done on the bylaws. Does that work for everybody?
Yes, sounds good.
Good plan.
Right, I love it. You guys are the best. Jim, get working on that trip to the Caribbean.
I think we might need some help from Friends of Volunteer Tennessee on the funding for that.
Okay, we'll get on
it. Working on it.
Although there is a commission in Puerto Rico,
oh,
so
we should
perhaps
go.
a commission exchange.
Check it out.
Well, thank you all for your time today, and then we'll be in touch about next steps, okay?
Awesome.
Appreciate
All
your
right.
Good seeing everybody.
teamwork. Appreciate
Do we
it.
need a motion to adjourn, or are we good?
We do need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Woohoo!
Andrea got in there. Can I have a second?
And can we do that by voice vote, Jim, or do we have to do roll call vote?
The motion to adjourn actually doesn't require a vote. It just requires a motion and a second. So
we
who
need a
made the second?
Jason, I got
Jason did.
Andrea as the first and Jason as the second. And one of these days I'll remember all these rules. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that,
You're
yeah,
doing great, Amy.
yeah, I think it's once the second is made, it's considered to be adjourned.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you all.